Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Today, part 1 of my Raw Techno 4 template explanation. Basically, this track I've been creating live during my live stream session. It's every 2 Monday, I create track from scratch. And today I'm gonna go over each track, how it's been made and why. And next week we will focus more on the arrangement, automation, variation, mixing and mastering. Alright, so let's have a listen how it sounds. Alright, so let's start with the kick drum. So sometimes when I do live stream, especially for this kind of raw techno, I like to use as much as I could like the default kind of classic kit. The kick drum and the hats, I use the classic 909 core kit. So this is like by default in Ableton. And that's our kick drum. So you can see it's made of the clap that I shortened the decay and from the bass drum, both layered. There is a bit of processing I'm gonna remove. And so let's start with our kick drum. So here a few things. EQ can really kind of shape the tone of your kick drum. So here you can see I'm heavily boosting around 50 Hertz, cutting around 200 and then boosting again around 4000 Hertz. It's actually incredible how just an EQ can change completely the tone of your 909 kick. So I really recommend to experiment with that. And then I add some overdrive. Just to kind of enhance the mid-high. I like it, but I felt it was missing a bit of transient. So the best way to add a transient is to add a very short percussive sound at the beginning. I could have used the rim. I used the hand clap that I shortened the GK from the original. And then I use my kick punch rack. So this is some parallel processing. It's a rack I've made. I will put it in the description. It's some parallel processing where you will have your dry signal. And then after you will have a chain where you have some distortion, reverb and high pass filter. So the point is to kind of just enhance the mid-high frequency. It had a bit of reverb, very slightly gentle reverb. And overall, it's just enhanced the top end of your kick. It's just helped the kick cut through the mix. Then we goes into our hats, so it's basically just the 909 core kit. I use a different one because I like to do different processing for the hats than the kick. Let's have a look into the pattern. You're gonna see it's a kind of a classic pattern where you will have first the close hat playing every 16. Let me put the grid in 16. Close hat every 16, except obviously when the open hat is playing, because otherwise it's gonna choke your open hat. So close hat, open hat. So this way, let me actually mute the ride. I mean, pretty basic rhythm, but that's what works the best. And then you have the ride as well, playing after on every beat and off beat. And you get something pretty classic, but something that is effective and work. Now, in terms of processing for the close hat, you can see you have first reverb and drum bass as overall process, but just for the close hat, again, I just slightly use overdrive. I like to use overdrive because you can kind of filter the band that you want to drive. And here, quite a good amount of drive and the tone more like after 50%. So this way, it's kind of enhancing the mid-high. Very small amount, but it does the job. It just enhances what it needs. You can see I play with the GK, but I will talk about this next week in the variation automation. It's just to add a bit more groove. Then we have our open hat. Again, a bit of just saturation. It's very gentle, it's nothing too crazy. And then the ride, there is a bit more processing because the ride is quite particular. So the ride is playing like this. I have first a frequency shifter to kind of pitch it down. I kind of like how the frequency shifter is pitching down better than the tune. Then I will have some delay. Delay is gonna mainly to add a bit of movement. Add a bit of stereo. a good amount of reverb, you can see 50%. And then stereo width is just to put it more on the side. You're gonna have your closer hat and your open hat in the middle, and having the stereo on the side makes space. But most importantly, I just don't know why, but putting the ride on stereo usually, I don't know, it just sounds better to my ears. So that's why I usually do that. And then it's just some sidechain. So again, I will put the link in the description if you want to grab this rack. It's just a rack with a shaper and utility, and allowed you to have a quick sidechain effect, like this kind of pumping, ducking effect. And then you can see I have this auto pan ride, which is gonna make it basically make your ride move from left to right quite fast because the rate is 3/4. Then once I had that, I straight away had some reverb. Reverb is not really for the ride, especially it was more for the open hat and the closer hat, because the ride have his own process. And so then after I had drum bus, I like to use drum bus on hats. First, it's gonna kind of compress and kind of group a little bit, glue a little bit together. But I like to use as well the crunch usually, because it kind of adds some harmonics in the mid-high, kind of make it the sound a bit more modern, a bit more aggressive. Obviously the compression is gonna put it more in the front. So that's why I use a drum bus a lot. So you can hear that color the sound as well a lot. So I kind of like, but then after it really depends on the track, to be honest. Sometimes I don't like how it affects the hats depending on the track. Here I didn't mind. Yeah, drive, crunch, damp is to kind of tame a little bit the very high harsh frequency, and transient is kind of reducing the tail of the reverb, kind of acting as a gate. That's how I get my drum. Then I have a second ride. So I just talk about how I like it, my ride to be like more texture things. This is even like a next level kind of texture ride. It's really more like a texture than a ride itself, but it's work well. It always give the ride, the tone of the ride always give a driving effect to your track. So here you're gonna see I have two ride playing, one again on the beat and one off beat, except that here is the same sample, but you can see that one is reverse. You see this one is reverse. This one is the original, and playing the reverse in combination of the normal one gives this nice effect. I'm gonna remove all the effect chain. You can kind of hear this reverse effect. And then it's some processing until I get the tone I like. So I said I love to use shifter. I made a video about shifter because it's really great for techno. If you wanna pitch things in a weird way, it's perfect for that. So pitching high. And here I'm not pitching, but you can see I have a LFO working on the pitch, which means it's gonna slightly change the pitch over 8 bar, going up and down, pretty nice to kind of add variation. Bit of EQ, and then again, getting that textured effect with delay, add movement as well, a lot of reverb. You see I use the convolution with almost 50% dry wet. I enhance the stereo. And then it's just some sidechain. It's more like a texture ride, but yeah, I love that. And then some perks. So this I've actually added after the live stream because I felt was missing a little bit of element at the beginning of the track. The beginning of the track was like kind of a bit empty. And I just found I needed to add this kind of percussive loop to kind of break this monotony, and that's what I did. So this is something I use quite often as well, this kind of perc loop. You're gonna see it's a pretty easy pattern. It's similar to what I would usually do with the closer hat. The pattern is basically just like this. So if you put your grid in 16, you have your kick here, and you have one off beat, one before the beat, and then the second one is slightly different. You still have one off beat and one after the beat, but you have as one between the beat and off beat. And this really gives a nice groove. And this works especially well when you start to add delay. So here there is just more than delay of because this is echo plugin from Ableton, but you can hear how the repetition adds some groove. It's worth noting that I as well pitched the sample by default was, which worked well, but I wanted something more like in the tone of a rim shot or clap, like a very short percussive sound, a bit like kind of a woody type of sound. So that goes into a delay, but like I said, you have the input drive, which is gonna add a bit more bout. It make it louder obviously, but you have the drive as well activated. You can hear you have the reverb. And yeah, I crank up the stereo to the maximum, and yeah, 50% amount. A slight higher pass, sidechain, and then a stereo effect to really put the percussion on the side, obviously because the center is pretty busy. It doesn't really disturb. Sometimes when you put something very on the side, it's kind of disturbing. Here's kind of fitting well the track, so that's why I left it like that. You can see that after, it's not playing like the whole track, because after when the track gets very busy, you kind of don't hear it that much. So it's good to remove it to left the space for other elements. All right, then we go into our bass part. So you have the bass line is basically from a bass sound like this, and the tom. So the bass is more gonna be for the roundness, the stereo of the bass, where the tom is gonna give this extra percussive, energetic aspect. So you're gonna see if I just play the kick and the bass. It's worked pretty well on its own. Like I could have kept it like this, it's worked well, but for this track I feel like it needed a bit more impulsion somehow, so that's why I had tom. It's a matter of taste. Maybe some of you prefer without the tom, some ways, not really wrong or right way to do it. It's really what you like the most. The bass, it's a pretty simple patch. You could hear the pattern as well. So you can see the pattern is quite a bit different. I wanted to try something different, a different groove than the classic offbeat than usual. So you can see you have one on the beat, and then you have one right after the second beat, and then again one on the beat, and then one after the second beat. Create this kind of groove, but obviously I'm gonna process it. The patch itself, nothing crazy, it's just a sine wave that I will low pass. Here one of the things is happening with the drift. You have this mod mono, and you have under this parameter here. It's basically gonna add some harmonics to your sound. And that's pretty cool because it gives a really nice tone to your bass line. So another important element is the filter, and you can see there is some modulation on the filter with the envelope too. So basically this negative modulation means that your filter is gonna slightly go down. You can see there is a lot of resonance as well. So obviously when you're gonna move the filter, the kind of sweeping effect is gonna affect the sound. If I remove the modulation, but obviously the sweeping effect creates the wow, 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 wow. And because of the pattern as well, which is like with a short note and then after a longer note. So that was create as well this rhythmical thing. Then it's a delay. It just makes the bass a bit more stereo. If you're really scared of your phase, I always put like the bass in mono. So you can feel like maybe you lose a little bit of the stereo, but yeah, that's what we want. And then some sidechain to the kick, obviously. And again, this tom pattern percussive. So I made a video recently about tom pattern and how they can help to give this impulse percussion and a bit more groove. So here is the classic pattern with a classic velocity, with a lower velocity, high velocity, offbeat, and in between, right after the offbeat. And it's the same like this. So here again, a bit of processing, delay. I like to add delay because it's always add a bit of movement, and a bit of thickness as well, kind of. But again, low pass because I don't need this high frequency here, and I put my bass. Actually, I put it straight up in mono here. And sidechain. I don't know, without the tom, I feel it's lacking a little bit of groove, but that might just be a personal choice. Okay, next up we go into the more, let's say, melodic keys element. Here the idea was to have a kind of a weird detune sound. That's what I like for this kind of raw, deep hypnotic techno. Getting completely out of tune usually works well. It creates this kind of weird, scary feeling, a bit dark mood. And there is different way to do that, and I've kind of gathered a few of them to play out of tune. The first one is I'm using micro tuner. So this basically, you kind of create your own scale. You see, you can select how much pitch you want. You can add some randomization. So basically, instead of having you A at 440 Hz, it's gonna be at 438 or something like that. It kind of shrinken or extend kind of your scale. Every note you play, they are kind of now out of tune. And when you all play them together, everything is out of tune, which can be a problem. But for this type of techno, especially when you use sawtooth, detune, it just works so well. So let me show you actually the sound without the micro tuner. And with. I agree it was sounding weird already before, but because there is some other stuff I did in the process that make it sound weird. But yeah, it's a really great tool to get weird tone. Here, to be fair, like the MIDI pattern doesn't really, I don't really have tips except then here what I've done is I just put the grid in 16 and I probably select like not even 1 bar, half bar, and I was just putting note, trying to find great combination. You can see I have some that I deactivate, this one they are off. One trick is like to don't be scared to play over different octave. Like for example, this note you can see would more belong around there an octave down than an octave up, but having this octave jump really got this impulse, and yeah, it usually works well. And again, I'm not gonna say here there is not about minor fifths because everything is kind of out of tune, so you just have to kind of trial and error. You can still, maybe if you don't want to do this way, you can use external sequencer like Max for Live sequencer. That's really up to you, but I like to use Ableton One like this sometimes. And yeah, then everything goes into Ableton Drift. Does the sound without any effect. With the micro tuner, one thing when you use micro tuning, make sure like the pitch bend number here is matching the pitch bend range on your Ableton device, or you can do even that with VST, it works. Make sure that the pitch bend, because that's how micro tuning is working, it's kind of altering the pitch bend per each note. And here what's gonna make the sound weird. You have this waveform, but you can see I add the second oscillator an octave down, but it's detuned like almost 6 semitones, so that's what's gonna give this weird. You see, if I put at a normal detune, it's okay, but as far as I put like usually 6 semitone, it's making things weird, and I even like detune a little bit more by not being exactly perfect 6 semitone. So all this slight detune shift kind of overall create a huge detune and a huge weirdness which work perfect. Add a bit of noise. It usually works well, and then it goes through a low pass filter, 12 dB. But you can see that the filter is brought down, but it's modulated by the envelope 2, which is quite plucky envelope with no sustain and 600 millisecond decay release. This is to really create this plucky sound. You can see the amplitude envelope is very similar. Actually, I could have used envelope 1 to modulate. And again, I used the mono mode with some mono thickness, which is gonna add some extra harmonics in the low and a bit in the high as well. And then I'm gonna use a shifter. Again, even more weirdness. Here what's happening is I have the shifter, so you can see it's fine detune almost 1 semitone, but the trick is to have the dry rate at 50%, so this way you have 50% of the original signal, 50% of the one detune 1 semitone, and obviously that accentuates this detune, and you know, the more detune, the weirder it gets. So yeah, that's pretty good. I'm gonna put the reverb, so like this you can hear the effect processing is better after. I have this modularizer rack. It's a rack I made, I put the link in the description. It's basically a vocoder with a certain setting that just makes your sound a bit more modern, a bit more aggressive. And this is another rack I actually created kind of live during the live stream. I'm probably gonna do a more elaborate version where with a video with to explain it and where you can grab it. Basically, the idea was to have your dry signal and then having other chain into the rack, so other audio, other parallel processing, which are slightly different. And the idea was to filter the sound. So here I use a bandpass filter. Usually bandpass filter is great because it adds a lot of character to your sound, because obviously it's just filter one certain frequency range. Usually when you use the resonant, it kind of gives this extra character as well. And so having this resonant bandpass filter on top of the normal one adds an extra character. And here the trick is as well to make the filter kind of sweep a little bit, so you have this sweeping effect which give even more character and more importantly add movement. So basically you will have your classic sound that you're gonna layer with this filter signal which is gonna move, and it's gonna add a lot of variation to do your sound without changing too much the character. So let's have a listen. This is obviously the dry, but then I have you can hear how it's filtered. You can see it slightly on the right as well. This is me who pan it after. But you can see how it's really gonna give character to the sound. Obviously, it's heavily filtered. Here I have a second one more in the mid, so which is panned to the left slightly. So together they are. So here obviously the movement and the changement is quite obvious because you just have the weight parallel processing, but then when you blend with the dry one, it's become a bit more subtle and you really hear that something is happening. There is some movement around, but it doesn't alter that much the original sound. And this is a great way to get your sound kind of hypnotic, or like having variation inside of your sound without making it too obvious. So this way your brain kind of say like, okay, it's the same sound, but somehow I'm not getting bored because there is always something changing and moving and evolving. And that was the point of the rack. So after it's, I didn't say, but it's slightly high pass as well. But yeah, that's a great trick to make your sound evolve without changing the tone too much. It could be similar to using a phaser or flanger effect. Then I have an auto filter. So here it's more like a low pass filter to kind of fade in, fade out your sound. This is more like arrangement things. If I need to bring the sound slowly at the beginning of the track, or to like turn it down slowly, turn it off slowly at the end of the track. That's what just is for. I haven't used the filter from the synthesizer because you have some filter envelope and it doesn't quite work the same because obviously the filter is modulating, it's opening fast. And yeah, it was smoother to do with an auto filter with a low pass filter, and then it's gonna be some delay. So this is the echo plugin again. Here you can see the time are different. One is 16, 316, one is 8 dot. Slightly shift as well. You have some feedback. The delay, it's filtered as well, you can see. And more importantly, you have some slow LFO modulation on both the delay pitch and the filter, so which means that the delay time is gonna slightly change, which kind of gonna get this weird pitch effect. And time again, it's gonna move the filter here, so it's gonna have this filter sweeping effect. And yeah. Then is the hybrid reverb, is the same than the other one. It's just like on convolution mode with like the real place, so like nothing crazy about. I think I reduced the decay a little bit. Then stereo width. So this was the mixing decision. It might sound weird on the own, but because you're gonna see with the lead is more in the middle, and I found when I was mixing that it was kind of clashing both scents, like overlapping each other. So I say, okay, let's put this one on the stereo side because this one is not the main important, and I will put the main lead more in the middle, and like this together they all glue well together. Based in mono, everything under 120, and adding a bit of stereo is this just gonna enhance a little bit more the stereo with, and some sidechain. So when I was creating this track, basically what happened, this is the first scent I came up with, and I first wanted it to be my main lead, and I wanted to build the whole track around this sequence and having the filter evolving, open, close. But I felt after that the scent was not strong enough to be the lead. Like, it was good, but I felt like I will quickly get bored and it cannot carry on the track alone itself, and it was a difficult position because I felt like the synth was not like a kind of background synth, because it was very good to be like a synth on its own, but was not good enough to be really the main lead, to be more in the front. So I was hesitating a lot to put it as a lead or no, and on the end I found another lead sound, because what happened is I say, okay, when I felt that this synth was not strong enough, I was looking for another lead to be the main strong lead, and I was struggling to really find something. I was trying to find maybe a stab to play in answer to the sequence, and yeah, I really struggled because, like I said, this lead was not strong enough to be the main lead, but too strong to be kind of a background lead, so it was hard. But I decided but I finally find another lead which sounds like this. Which was great and which was going well with this one, the first one, except that this one really needed to be low pass filter, which is kind of a shame because I really like as well this synth when you open fully the filter. But I had to make a choice, and I had to say, okay, I'm gonna keep this key one with the filter most of the time low, a kind of a muffled sound, so this way this one can shine and be the main lead. And to create this lead, basically what I've done is I've done something I do, I think probably almost in all my templates, and I love to do that. I've called what I call recycling. Basically what I'm usually doing is I'm taking a track that already fits in the track. So here, this track, I took this track and I duplicate it, and the idea is to starting from this preset that already work to create a new one. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I know this sound already works, so the chance that I will create something out of it that work as well are higher than if you start again everything from scratch. And here that's what I've done actually, except then because I wanted to play a chord, I bring up the sustain, I bring a bit more envelope, and I create a patch this way which was different enough from the original but not too much. And as well here I play some chords, so it's a different way of playing. It kind of slightly changed. You can see here I have as well, because this I play it basically live. Again, I'm gonna show you the chord, but the pitch doesn't mean anything because you have micro tuning. Keep in mind that it's exactly the same patch than the key you're gonna see. Again, micro tuner with drift. But yeah, usually this technique works well if you try to play a different note, usually playing a different octave as well can help. Here it's kind of the same octave range, but yeah, here it's work. And yeah, the processing I'm not gonna last too much because you have again shifter for the detune effect, modernizer to make it modern, this filter sweeping effect that I already explained before. And then you have bright key. This is a corpus preset that I've tweaked. I think the original is brightener and I call it bright key. It's a resonator, and I don't know, somehow I couldn't explain, but it kind of enhanced sound in the high frequency. So this was more a mixing purpose. I'm gonna put the reverb again because you're gonna hear better the difference with the reverb. You can hear how without is a bit more muffled and with is more clear. And then an EQ just to tame a little bit the very high frequency. Again, this was a mixing choice because I felt like it was a bit too aggressive. Let me put it here. Autopan. Here again, I make the sound slightly move around your head. You can see it's slightly going from the left to the right. Auto filter, same reason than before. It's like to kind of fade in, fade out the sound. And then you have some delay. I think it's exactly the same delay you see with the modulation on the filter, the reverb, and the sidechain. Alright, and that's it for the synth. The noise here, so I really like this type of track as well, to have this kind of evolving ambience and texture going on the track. So I've been for one which is very more like a noisy, a little bit like the right texture. You see, you can see I actually use the DS cymbal. It's a drum synth from Ableton. This you have on Ableton by default. You can see it's actually a classic ride pattern. It's actually offbeat. And then it's a shifter to and ring modulation. Again, this is really, I like to use this to kind of find a tone I like because I want this metallic tone, but I need to find the right pitch and the right tone. So I like to use shifter, frequency shifter, and the ring modulation. And here again is some pitch modulation. You can hear the LFO. It's a bit more subtle here. I put one semitone down as well. And then just some EQ. Same again, autopan to make it go around your head. Filter delay. Some reverb. And some sidechain. So this again, when you are in the full blast of the track, you don't hear much, but it really had the track to fill up a little bit and make it a bit more interesting. And then finally I have this ambience too. This is again something I created after the stream, I think, because I felt like, again, at the beginning of the track, it was missing a bit of ambience. So here for this ambience, I really wanted something a little bit disturbing, gritty, you know, this kind of very screechy, annoying sound almost. Yeah, let's have a listen without the effect. But I kept microtuner here, but to be fair, it's not really necessary because I will explain you why later. But the pattern is just like a one long single note, and I have this arpeggiator here, which is, I could have just like having a 16 note arpeggiator pattern, but yeah, I choose to do this way. And so here to get this annoying and gritty sound, so I will have some noise as well, so that's why I put the noise on the patch. And one of the best way to get this kind of a bit noisy, annoying sound is to use FM. So here I use, see the LFO is modulating the pitch. Actually you have as well a very annoying here sound, but with the LFO you see it's in sine waves with the rate at the maximum, so it's kind of creating some FM sound. It's a bit weird. The shape as well. This was really like trying to experiment with until I found something I like, but yeah. Then after one I have this bass, I can start to process. Again, frequency shifter quite a lot here to really pitch it down. Then erosion. Amp. Pedal. So this is really to destroy kind of everything, really get this grit out of it. And then again, some reed modulation, so to really get very bass sounding kind of tone. This actually was on something else, but I forgot to remove it. And then you have autopan. Again, it's gonna make the sound move around your head. So here you might think like this, where is it going with this sound? But you're gonna see, we're gonna filter it and then put him into a lot of delay and reverb. Kind of giving this radio effect. So delay. Yeah, I probably reuse the same chain than the lead one, because you can see the delay is exactly the same parameter with the modulation and everything. Same with the reverb. So I actually probably just duplicate the lead or the key, and then I just change the way I want it, you know, to add noise and to add this oscillator for this weird frequency. And yeah, a bit of sidechain. And yeah, then everything goes into this Mixdown track. You might wonder why I have a Mixdown. Basically, all my mix is going there, and this I will use as a master effect. So basically, you have the master track here, but I like to keep it just either for the mastering chain or to don't put nothing. I don't like to put effects which are sound design related. I just don't like to be there. I like to be with the rest of the other track. I feel like for the automation and for clarity, it's better to have it with the other track. So that's why I just create an audio track and I send all the track into that audio track, and then I have my master effect. So here I have some low cut for the break, you know, when you need to. And I have as well this riser effect rack. Basically, this is a rack I made. Again, I'll put it in the description. It's kind of a washout effect, so it will add a lot of delay, reverb, high-pass filtering onto your sound, and it's kind of elevate your sound. And it's really great for breakdown to kind of bring the tension, and that's what I do here. You can hear. If I exaggerate, and then it goes down. And yeah, that's pretty much it. After, we're gonna talk about all the automation, variation, mixing, mastering, arrangement next week. All right, and that's pretty much it for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to grab the template, you can. The link in the description. It's a great way to support me. And see you next week for part 2. Bye bye.